This December marks 100 years since South Australian scientist and explorer Sir Douglas Mawson set off on his historic voyage to Antarctica. The Mawson's Huts Foundation is working to restore the explorers' huts at Cape Denison on Commonwealth Bay. And as part of that, they've retrieved a precious piece of history from its cold, windy location in the sub-Antarctic. Tracy Bowden reports.
Macquarie is a small island with a big history. Since it was discovered in 1810, it's been home to seal and penguin hunters, explorers and scientists. Now it's the site of an Australian Antarctic Division research base. There's little evidence of it today, but 100 years ago, this hilltop at the north end of the island provided a vital link in establishing communications between Antarctica and the rest of the world. Back in December 1911, there was much anticipation as Douglas Mawson and his team set sail from Hobart, bound for the Great Southern Ocean and beyond. The expedition stopped off at the halfway point, Macquarie Island.
He needed a site to put a radio repeater. There was no hope of transmitting all the way from Australia down to Antarctica. And so the thought was that if they established a repeater station somewhere in the middle of the Southern Ocean, from there he'd be able to send the signal back on and head off down south.
Douglas Mawson decided that the best spot for the aerial would be on top of what became known as Wireless Hill. The team not only needed to haul 2 large masts up the 100-metre slope, but material to build 2 huts. The task was made slightly easier thanks to a flying fox used by the sealers.
Fortunately, this flying fox was available for North Head. It wasn't strong enough because it had only been designed to carry seal skins, so they modified the cable of it and slowly, bit by bit, lugged all this equipment up the top.
The aerial was made up of 4 wires suspended above the ground between 2 masts. The next challenge was to get it up and running.
It was Morse code they used. It was supplied by Amalgamated Wireless Australasia, which is a forerunner of Telstra today. They donated that. And the equipment itself was made in Germany. It was quite a remarkable piece of engineering and foresight by Mawson.
It was a tough job for the wireless operators. Every day, sometimes in driving rain or gale force winds, they had to climb up to the top of the hill to see if they could get a message. It would be more than a year before they were finally able to communicate with Mawson in Antarctica. Two-way communication with Antarctica was established in February 1913. A meteorological station operated on Macquarie Island until 1915, using the technology set up by Mawson's team.
Victor Lima Victor, Mawson Station, this is VJ Macquarie.
The technology is very different on Macquarie Island these days. Communications Technical Officer Kevin White reaches the outside world with ease via satellite. Do you have a sense, working in this area, of what it would have been like back then and how difficult it was, and the fact that they actually could communicate from here, how amazing that was?
Those must have been motivated people, incredible the conditions they worked in and the technical achievement, remarkable. Your QTH, please, 100 kilometres from Lyon in France.
But as Kevin White has discovered, plenty of people like to do things the old-fashioned way. And a successful call to Macquarie Island is considered a triumph for ham radio enthusiasts.
OK, so I've got you in the log. Foxtrot 5, Uniform, Florida X-ray. And 5 and 9 plus in Macquarie Island. Great signal from France, over.
As for Mawson's aerial and the huts, they've borne the brunt of some wild and windy conditions over the years, so it's no surprise that they've undergone massive deterioration. A century after the masts were first set up, this is all that's left.
What we have here is the remains of this first mast, which consists of 3 pieces of timber and 2 iron alloy elements associated with that mast.
Peter Maxwell and Martin Passingham travelled to Macquarie Island for the delicate process of collecting and then transporting the remnants safely to Hobart.
The main concern I've got is when we start excavating, it will be the amount of moisture and water content on the base of the components. We're going to have to excavate well underneath, so it takes soil and the mast component with it. It is Oregon timber, and Oregon timber does perform really well in the outdoors. So with this extreme environment, what we've got left is pretty amazing.
The remains were carried back down the hill in much the same way they were taken to the top all those years ago. Manpower. It was David Jensen, the founder and CEO of the Mawson's Huts Foundation, who led the charge to organise this expedition.
Well, I think it's important to try and recover and conserve all these pieces of Australian history.
Virtually nothing remains of the two huts on top of the hill. One of them was bulldozed back in 1948 when Australia first established a scientific base on the island. The second has just broken down over the years. This expedition has taken a GPS reading to record the locations where the huts and the masts once were. Next, the long journey to Hobart on board the Astrolabe. The timber will be dried out, which could take several months before undergoing restoration. Then it will go on display at the Tasmanian Museum and Art Gallery.
Hopefully it'll remind people of Mawson's role in Australian Antarctic history. He was a man of vision. I think it's an important relic that we've managed to retrieve, and it will now be permanently displayed for people to wonder in awe about what Mawson and his men achieved.
Tracy Bowden reporting.